Have you ever been at a party having an absolutely great time, and then, bam, you just hit a wall? You're not tired, not really. You're just full. Well, today we're going to completely dismantle the shame that comes with that social crash. We're going to see it not as some kind of personal flaw, but as a really fascinating feature of your brain's unique design.
Okay, let's paint a picture. I'm sure this is going to sound familiar to a lot of you. You're out. The music's good, people are being nice, the conversation is actually interesting, you're in it, you're engaged. And then, almost out of nowhere, it happens. Suddenly, the laughter right next to you feels way too loud. The different smells in the room, which were fine a minute ago, are now sharp and totally overwhelming. And you get this deep, almost physical urge to just vanish, to find a dark, silent room and just be alone. It's like a switch flips, and your only mission is to find the exit. Now, your first instinct probably is to blame yourself, right? You feel like a party pooper, you think, ugh, I'm so fragile, or why am I so awkward? But what if that feeling isn't a weakness at all? What if it's actually a signal from your brain's super high-performance operating system?
This is where we have to totally reframe what's going on. You're not socially anxious. You are saturated. Let's forget those vague labels like introvert for a second. We're talking about something more technical, processing satiety. Your brain's battery isn't empty, it's completely full. You know, the words we use here really matter. On one side, you've got all these words of shame and self-blame. On the other, you've got technical descriptions of a process. And this isn't just about feeling better with new words, it's about accurately diagnosing what's happening with your neural hardware.
Think about it like this. For you, a social event isn't just about catching a vibe. It's a massive data ingest operation. While other people might be, skimming the room in standard definition, your brain is recording the entire thing in 8K. You're processing the subtext of every conversation, the tiny microexpressions on every face, the whole emotional energy of the environment.
And look, this isn't just a cool metaphor. There's a real neurobiological reason for this high-res experience. To get it, we need to look at a tiny part of your brain called the thalamus and understand why it's basically screaming for a full system reboot after a couple of hours.
So your thalamus is your brain's sensory gatekeeper. For a lot of people, that gate is like a really strict bouncer at a club. It filters out almost all the background noise. But for others, there's a phenomenon called leaky gating. That gate is just wide open. You aren't choosing to listen to the conversation happening 3 tables away. Your brain physically cannot filter it out. It all gets in. This shows the difference perfectly. The dandelion brain, it can thrive pretty much anywhere because its thalamus is great at filtering out noise. But the orchid brain, with its open gate, just ingests everything. It's got nothing to do with trying harder. It's about having completely different hardware. Okay, so all of that unfiltered 8K data, it comes at a huge metabolic cost. Because your orchid brain's thalamus lets everything in, your mind is running like a supercomputer, performing this incredibly complex task that just burns through a massive amount of energy. Now, this isn't a literal math equation, of course, but it captures the dynamic perfectly. Your fatigue is a direct result of your super high data resolution multiplied by all the stimuli in the room. And research backs this up. Minds like this burn way more glucose during social interactions. And this is the key insight. Your social crash is a survival mechanism. It's your brain's built-in thermal regulation system, and it's shutting down the social software to stop the core hardware from completely overheating. It's a feature, not a bug. Once you understand that, it leads to a totally new approach. Instead of fighting your limits, you start to honor your energy ceiling. You see it for what it truly is, a core design specification of your system. Seriously, pushing past your saturation point doesn't make you a better friend or a better person. You're just draining your resources. When you're oversaturated, you actually lose all the gifts of your high-resolution brain. Your empathy, your logic, your keen observation. You just become a blurry, irritable version of yourself. So the most important point is this. You have to accept that 2-hour limit, or whatever your personal limit happens to be. It's not a failure, it's the fair price you pay for the incredible depth and clarity of your perception. You have to stop apologizing for it. Okay, so let's turn this powerful new way of thinking into a practical, actionable plan. I mean, if this is a hardware issue, then what we need is a hardware calibration protocol to manage it, without all the shame and guilt.
All right, here we go.
First, preemptive gating. Before you even go out, spend 20 minutes in an input-zero environment, total silence, low light, to clear your mental RAM. Second, use the checkout label. When you start to feel that saturation kicking in, don't say, "I'm tired." Say, "My thalamus has hit its limit. The data ingest is complete." Third, if you can't leave yet, use the sensory flush. Find a quiet bathroom or a hallway for just 3 minutes of sensory deprivation. It can actually reset your timer. And finally, the 48-hour recovery. After a big social event, plan for 2 days in a low-resolution state to let your brain fully process everything and recover.
Let this be the thought that really sticks with you. Your need for quiet, for recovery, for leaving early, it is not a weakness you have to apologize for. It is a non-negotiable requirement for the unique strength that you bring to the world. You are the high-resolution sentinel, and that depth you have requires the quiet to survive and to thrive.
So the next time you have to retreat, don't see it as an escape. See it for what it really is. It's your brain demanding an input-zero environment, so it can finally begin the vital work of synthesis. The data has all been gathered. The audit is complete, so the real question is, what incredible insights will you create in the quiet?
Have you ever been at a party, you're having a great time, and then, bam, it's like a switch flips, and you just hit a wall. You feel this overwhelming need to just disappear. Well, you're definitely not alone. And here's the good news. It's not a flaw in your personality. Today, we're going to dig into the actual neurobiology of why socializing can be so incredibly draining and look at it in a whole new light.
And this right here, this one sentence is the key to everything. We need to stop using labels like anxious, which kind of implies something is wrong with us. Instead, let's use a word that just describes a state of being. You're full, saturated. Think about it. Your social battery isn't broken or empty. Your brain's hard drive is just at 100% capacity.
So let's start with this thing that so many of us know all too well. It's called the 2-hour crash. It's that exact moment when a really fun evening suddenly turns into an exhausting, overwhelming ordeal.
And it's not just in your head. It's a full-body experience, right? It's a complete sensory revolt. That laughter you were enjoying just minutes ago, now it sounds piercing and loud. The food smells sharp. You get this intense, desperate urge to just vanish. And then comes the guilt. You feel like a party pooper, fragile, awkward. It's such a powerful physical thing, not just you changing your mind.
Okay, so if it isn't social anxiety, then what in the world is going on? Well, to find the answer, we have to move past personality types and start thinking about this in terms of data processing. The big idea here is that this is about your brain's capacity, not your character.
The actual term for this state is processing satiety. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like your phone when you have way too many apps open at once. It gets hot, it slows right down, and eventually it just freezes up completely. That's your brain. It's sending out this massive system-wide alert that says, reboot required, like right now. And this gets to the heart of the difference. For a lot of people, socializing is just about soaking up the vibe. But for you, it's a full-blown, high-stakes data collection mission. Your brain is recording everything in stunning 8K resolution. The subtle meaning behind words, the flicker of a micro-expression, the emotional temperature of the entire room. It's a mind-boggling amount of information. So what's the piece of biological hardware that's responsible for all this? To really get it, we need to take a look at the bouncer standing at the front door of your consciousness.
And here it is, the thalamus. This tiny little structure in your brain is basically the main relay station for almost all the sensory information that comes in. It's the thing that decides what gets your attention and what just gets filtered out as noise. And as you're about to see, not all thalamuses work the same way.
This is crucial. We have this amazing analogy, the dandelion brain versus the orchid brain. In a dandelion brain, the thalamus is like a super strict bouncer at a club. It filters out maybe 90% of the sensory noise, which makes it easy to focus on just one conversation. But in an orchid brain, the gate is wide open. This is something called leaky gating. You aren't choosing to overhear that argument 3 tables away. You are physically unable to ignore it. All the background noise, the flickering lights, the emotional energy, it all comes flooding in. So, if your brain has this leaky gate that's just letting in tidal waves of raw data, it helps to stop thinking of it as a flaw. Instead, think of it as a seriously high-performance machine. You know, like a supercomputer. And check this out. We can even put this feeling into a kind of formula. Your fatigue equals your crazy high 8K data resolution times the number of stimuli around you,
all divided by your available processing power, or RAM. So at a busy party, the number of stimuli is off the charts, and that's why your fatigue just skyrockets. This chart really just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, look at that difference in metabolic demand. Studies in neuroenergetics actually show this. A dandelion brain sips on energy at a dinner party, but an orchid brain, it is burning through glucose like crazy. For you, a simple dinner party can be the metabolic equivalent of running a marathon. I mean, no wonder you feel totally wiped out. And this brings us to maybe the most important point of all. That crash isn't a failure. It is a feature. It's a brilliant built-in survival mechanism. Your brain is intelligently shutting down the social software to stop your biological hardware from literally overheating and getting damaged. You're not bad with people. You're a supercomputer trying to run in a room that doesn't have a cooling system. Let's reframe this feeling even more. Think of yourself as a kind of sentinel. Your job was to go into that social situation and gather data. And your fatigue? That's not a sign of weakness. It's the signal that your mission is accomplished. The data audit is complete. You've got what you need. Now it's time to pull back and process all of it. Okay, so we get the why now. So what about the how? How do you actually manage this supercomputer brain of yours? Well, there's a practical toolkit for that, a kind of hardware calibration process called the gating protocol.
So here are the 4 key steps. First, preemptive gating. Before you even leave the house, take 20 minutes of total quiet. No phone, no music. Think of it as clearing your RAM. Second, the checkout label. The moment you feel yourself getting saturated, you consciously tell yourself, okay, data collection is complete. Third, the sensory flush. Find a quiet spot, a bathroom, your car, outside, for just 3 minutes to reset your senses. And finally, number 4, the 48-hour recovery. You have to schedule real downtime after a big event. This isn't a luxury, it's essential for your system to process all that 8K data it just recorded.
Let's land on this last idea, which is so empowering. Your limit, that 2-hour crash point, it is not a bug that needs to be fixed. It is a manufacturer's specification. It's a feature of your high-resolution operating system. It's just the price of admission for having this incredible gift of deep observation.
So, I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Instead of constantly fighting your limits, apologizing when you need to leave, what would happen if you started to honor them? What incredible insights, what creativity, what wisdom is just sitting there waiting for you to find it in the quiet once you finally give your supercomputer the reboot it needs and deserves? You know that feeling, right? That sudden, overwhelming urge to just disappear from a social gathering. One moment you're having a good time, the next you are completely and utterly drained. Well, today we're going to dismantle the shame around that whole experience and give it a powerful new name. We're going to explore why this happens and, more importantly, how to reclaim it as one of your greatest strengths.
I mean, this is a feeling so many of us know intimately. You're engaged, you're laughing, you're enjoying the company, and then a switch just flips. Suddenly, the laughter is just noise, the lights are way too bright, and every single part of you is screaming for a quiet, dark room. I'm telling you, it's not just you. This is a very real, very physical experience.
You know, for years, we've been asking the completely wrong question. We've been told we're awkward or anxious, or that we're just not trying hard enough. But what if the problem isn't some kind of personal failing? What if your brain isn't empty, but completely, totally full?
Okay, so let's start by really dissecting that infamous 2-hour crash. We're going to move beyond these vague personality labels like introvert and get into a much more precise and frankly way more empowering concept: processing satiety.
Society has a lot of labels for this feeling, and let's be honest, almost all of them are negative. They imply you're broken, that something needs to be fixed, or my personal favorite, that you just need to build up your stamina. But these labels completely, totally miss the structural truth of what is actually happening inside your brain.
And this, right here, is where the whole reframe begins. The old myth says your social battery is empty, but the truth? It's the exact opposite. Your brain's hard drive is at 100% capacity. You're not lacking energy, you are completely saturated with information.
To really get this, we have to look under the hood at your brain's actual operating system. This isn't about personality, not really. It's about neurobiology and the physical hardware you're running on. So, I want you to think of your thalamus as the bouncer at the exclusive nightclub of your brain. For what we'll call a dandelion brain, that bouncer is super strict, right? Filtering out almost all the sensory noise.
But for an Orchid brain, oh man, that bouncer has left the gate wide open and everyone's on the VIP list. The music, the flickering lights, the micro-expressions of someone across the room, you're processing all of it.
This biological condition actually has a name. It's called leaky gating. It just means your brain is physically incapable of ignoring all that background stimuli. So while other people are just kind of skimming the surface of the room, you are recording the entire environment in glorious high definition.
You can almost think of it like this equation here. Your fatigue is basically a function of your high-resolution mind multiplied by the sheer number of stimuli, all divided by your available processing power, your RAM. For you, a simple dinner party has the same metabolic demand as running a marathon has for someone else. It's a huge amount of work.
So that crash, that sudden shutdown, it is not a weakness. It is a survival mechanism. It's your brain's incredibly intelligent way of closing all this social software to prevent your actual hardware from literally overheating. It's a feature, not a bug.
Okay, so if this is how our brains are built, what does it all mean? Well, this is where we stop seeing this trait as a flaw and start seeing it for what it is, a function, a powerful, even an ancestral role.
This, right here, is the core idea. Your exhaustion isn't the end of the party, it's the end of a mission. It's the feeling of a job well done.
Think about it. In our ancestral past, the sentinel was an absolutely vital member of the tribe. Their role was to observe everything, to gather that high-resolution data, that signal, to keep the tribe safe. And once their data audit was complete, they had to retreat to the edge of camp to make sense of it all. So here's the crucial point. Your fatigue is a notification. It's your brain signaling that the data audit is finished. You have seen everything there is to see. Now, your mind is demanding an input zero environment so it can turn all that raw noise into actual wisdom.
So embracing this sentinel identity means you start to operate by a whole new set of rules. You stop fighting your nature and you finally start working with it.
The modern world, right, it's designed for constant connection, and it gives us the dandelion command, just push through it. It tells us leaving early is rejection. And this is a low-resolution lie. For the sentinel, the mandate is crystal clear. Honor the ceiling. Staying past the point of saturation is a cognitive crime. You lose your empathy, your logic, your 8K resolution. You're not being a good friend by staying. You're becoming a drained resource.
Please let this one sink in. Your social limit isn't a flaw in your design. It's a core feature. It's a specification. It is the necessary price you pay for the incredible, invaluable depth of your perception.
Acceptance is the key that unlocks everything else. The moment you stop apologizing for how you're built, you can start proactively architecting the recovery sanctuary you absolutely need. When you realize your crash is actually an intellectual flush, you stop fearing the party and you start mastering the exit.
Okay, so how do we handle this in the real world? This is what we call the gating protocol, a practical toolkit for hardware calibration, completely without the shame.
This protocol is basically your new user manual. Step 1 is pre-gating. Before you go out, give yourself 20 minutes of quiet to clear your mental RAM. Then, when you're there, use the checkout label. The second you feel that buzz, don't say you're tired. Say, my thalamus has hit its limit. It's time to synthesize. If you can't leave, use the sensory flush. Just 3 minutes in a quiet bathroom can reset your timer. And finally, plan for a 48-hour recovery. After a big event, you've earned 2 days in a low-data environment. You need it to process everything.
It is time to stop apologizing. Your limits are not a weakness, they are the guardians of your greatest strength. You are the sentinel. You gather the signal that everybody else misses, and that profound depth requires quiet to survive and to flourish.
So I will leave you with this question. The next time you feel that urge to retreat, remember your mission. Your data audit is complete. The real question is, what incredible insight, what crucial piece of wisdom will you now synthesize from the quiet?
All right, today we're diving into something that might just be a game changer for a lot of you. It's a new framework for understanding and managing that feeling of sudden social burnout. It's called the gating protocol, and honestly, it could completely change how you see yourself and your social life.
So let me ask you something. Have you ever been out, you're having a great time, everything's flowing, and then boom, out of nowhere, you hit a wall. You just can't anymore, and that urge to just disappear becomes overwhelming. If that sounds even vaguely familiar, you are in exactly the right place.
I mean, this quote just nails it, right? 1 minute, you're totally engaged, you're laughing. And then the next, It's like the lights literally start to dim, the noise gets louder, the people feel further away. It's a physical thing. It is a crash.
And here is the absolute core idea, the most important thing to get. That crash, it's not a character flaw. It's not you being awkward or broken. It is a built-in feature of your brain's specific hardware. It's not a bug, it is a spec.
Okay, so let's start by totally reframing this whole experience. We're going to move away from that feeling of shame for needing to leave the party early and move toward a much more technical and, frankly, more accurate understanding of what's going on. Data saturation.
Look, I'm willing to bet you've told yourself these things for years, right? You're the party pooper. You're the fragile one. And you probably thought, I just need to socialize more. I need to build up my stamina. But that's like telling a supercomputer to cool down by running more programs. It just doesn't make any sense.
So this is the upgrade. This is the new language we're adopting. You're not socially anxious. Your brain is data saturated. You're not just an introvert, you've reached processing satiety. And get this, your social battery isn't empty. It's completely full. It's actually overflowing with information.
So what is actually going on in there? On a biological level? Well, it pretty much all comes down to how your brain's sensory gate works. And this is where we start to see two very different types of hardware.
You see, for some of us, socializing isn't just a casual vibe. Oh no, it is a massive data ingest operation. You're not just passively listening to one person, you are actively, subconsciously processing every tiny microexpression, every shift in vocal tone, every background noise, all of it in stunning 8K resolution.
And here's where the difference is just night and day. The dandelion brain has this really strict filter. It just naturally ignores like 90% of all the background stuff. But the orchid brain, its sensory gate is wide open. It's taking everything in all at once.
There's actually a scientific term for this. It's called leaky gating. It means your thalamus, which is like the brain's bouncer or gatekeeper, is just letting everything through. This means you are physically incapable of just tuning out the music or the other conversations around you.
You can almost think of it like an equation. The fatigue you feel is basically that super high-res data stream multiplied by the sheer number of things happening around you, all divided by your available mental RAM. When that input starts to exceed your processing power, a crash is pretty much inevitable.
And this leads us to maybe the most powerful reframe of all. The crash isn't a failure. It's a protective shutdown sequence. It is your brain intelligently preventing your entire system from overheating. It's your built-in cooling system kicking in.
Okay, so we get the why now. We get the science. So what do we do about it, right? This is where we get super practical. This is the gating protocol, a 4-step process for calibrating your hardware so you can thrive in a world that wasn't really built for it.
It breaks down into these 4 core tactics. You've got gating before you go, labeling the feeling when it hits, flushing your sensors if you get stuck, and then scheduling a real recovery afterwards. First up, preemptive gating. This is key. Before you even walk into a party or a crowded restaurant, you take 20 minutes for what's called input zero. That means no phone, no music, no podcasts. Just quiet. You're essentially clearing your mental RAM before you start a massive new download.
Step 2 is all about what you say to yourself in the moment. When you feel that first buzz of being overwhelmed, don't just think, I'm so tired. Reframe it. Label it with technical precision. My thalamus has hit its limit. I am moving from ingest to synthesis. This shifts the feeling from I'm failing to my work here is done.
But what if you're stuck? You can't just up and leave. That's where step 3 comes in, the sensory flush. Find yourself a micro sanctuary, a quiet bathroom, an empty hallway, even just stepping outside for a minute. Just 3 minutes of near total quiet can actually reset your processor and buy you another 30 minutes of social time. It really works. And last, but absolutely not least, step 4, the 48-hour recovery. This one is non-negotiable. After a big social event, you have to schedule a recovery period. This is your low-resolution window. You minimize new data, you minimize social demands, you just let your brain's cleanup crew do its job.
So you see, this is so much more than just a set of tips and tricks. It's really a whole new philosophy. It's all about honoring your very real limits and understanding the unique value that comes with them. And if you remember one thing from this entire explanator, please let it be this. That 2-hour social limit you might have, it is not a bug. It is a specification.
It's the price you pay for the incredible gift of your perception.
So please, stop apologizing for it. Stop feeling guilty that you need to leave early. I mean, you wouldn't apologize for your laptop needing to be charged, would you? This is exactly the same. It's a simple metabolic limit.
I want you to try on a new identity. Think of yourself as the sentinel. The sentinel was the one in the tribe who noticed everything, every tiny detail, and then needed to retreat into the quiet to process all that information into wisdom. Your need for quiet isn't antisocial, it's essential for your gift to even function.
And so that's the final question I want to leave you with. Now that you understand your own hardware, now that you have the protocol, how are you going to protect your unique, valuable, higher resolution view of the world?